Welcome back to Molon Lave Wargaming, War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, Scenario 1, play-by-email campaign playing as Japan. This is the setup for the December 16th, 1941 turn. So last time we had a whole lot of action. We shelled some enemy ships in port, in rather small ports where they're apparently trying to evade us as they evacuate from Manila, and then in this area on the screen right now, we had dive bombers continuing to operate out of Rabaul, as well as the Lexington and Enterprise carrier battle group showing up northwest of Rabaul and hanging out there, creating a very interesting situation. So, getting into our plans for today, first I want to note right away, during the setup to the last turn, I added a little addendum at the end where I talked about a text message that I got from my opponent that indicated that the dive bombers were operating out of Rabaul itself and not from the Lexington. And because he hadn't started on the turn yet, I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to give me free intel, will you? I sort of had missed at that point that the dive bombers had transferred to Rabaul. So I was going to make some corrections on that, namely that the battleships in the amphibious task force were going to shell Rabaul, and also that this little task force over here, I noticed that I had not told him to discontinue loading. So these guys had been intended to refuel Carrier Division 3 in the corrected turn. They were still supposed to do that in the base turn, but they ended up not doing it in the corrected turn, or in the uncorrected turn, because the loading was not stopped. So they were continuing to unload instead of doing the refueling mission. So during the combat replay, when we saw things happening like hey, why the battleship shelled Rabaul, why aren't there any Dauntlesses destroyed, and why is there no airfield damage? Well, that was because that wasn't actually the battleships bombarding Rabaul. They were taking part in the amphibious unloading, and instead of shelling the airfield, they were shelling enemy coastal battery positions. Anyhow, so I guess the really big news or concern is that the carriers actually did show up anyways. So even though a whole bunch of SPD-3s and Vindicators are operating out of Rabaul, the Lexington and Enterprise are still right here. This is a horrible position for them. They really can't go anywhere but south. So that puts them in a kind of predictable area, and their paths to the south are being interfered with by the Solomons. So I'm making a move on these guys, basically. So I have 5 submarines all south of the carrier battle group now. So they're going to clog up this area to the west of Shortlands, and then also this narrower channel to the east of Shortlands. So there's a really good chance if he tries to pull out, he's going to run into a submarine. It's also fairly reasonable that he might stick around. These battleships over here that he wants so bad, the Dauntlesses aren't really getting the job done, so if he wants to sink those, and he does, he's going to have to use the Devastators. And that's going to require him to get ridiculously close. So for now, this task force has been ordered to retreat to truck, as are these guys. I split off one battleship, just one, to shell Rabaul just in case these dive bombers stick around. They're also retreating to truck, so hopefully that will be really easy to reunite these task forces. Taking a bit of a chance of this guy running into a submarine, but we haven't seen any Allied submarines operating in this area at this point. And we've got plenty of cruisers and battleships in this task force that have been firing scout planes out and around the area. And they haven't spotted any submarines. So be keeping the amphibious force together for now. Moving up a little bit to truck. So we had the Nell squadron that you see there already, which had an attack radius of 15 while armed with torpedoes. So that limited their search radius too, because I couldn't separate that. So 15 spaces only really gets them short of Rabaul, even though I'm pretty sure the search area made it look like it was going a little further. So these have now been replaced with Bettys that are on search duty. So the Bettys are going out to 17, and I actually think the graphic is still misrepresenting that, because 17 only gets them to Rabaul, and no further. So 17 is the setting for the full squadron. Yes, and then I also moved in a separate detachment that is just 2. And these guys are, since I'm not really concerned about a detachment of 2 aircraft, only going... I'm sorry, since I'm not worried about a detachment of 2 aircraft attacking, these guys are exclusively on search duty. That should get them out to 21 spaces, which is 1 past this one. And you can see the search area isn't quite accurate for that. But those 2 Bettys are these 2 search arcs right here. So basically looking for the carriers to go down and possibly a little bit to the west. Or maybe even, loitering and closing in a little bit, so that they could take a shot with their Devastators. But anyway, so the Nells are back on torpedoes. Why am I talking about arming these guys with torpedoes? Because... wrong task force. 23rd Air Flotilla has arrived. It hasn't unloaded at all yet, but they're going to start unloading overnight. So guess what? By the time these planes start flying, there should be torpedoes available. Now, the downside of this is they're not going to have escorts, so if we are fortunate enough to get a solution on the carriers and send these guys out, they're going to be potentially going up against a cap. On the other hand, we intend for these carriers to be very busy today, potentially dealing with strikes from my carriers, which will mean when we go in, their cap may be worn down, their cap may be distracted. Also, because we have the Nells on dedicated torpedo strike duty, we set their altitude very low. So like the Bettys that are doubling as search and torpedo attack have a relatively high altitude so that they can perform their search function effectively. We don't need that from these guys. So they're going to come in nice and low, and if he's setting a high altitude cap, these guys might just walk right in. Carrier Division 3, which I wanted to be the tip of my spear, unfortunately, due to my setting mistake, they're really thirsty. Too thirsty to throw right in. So I'm having them double back. They're going to meet up with these guys. We're not moving at flank speed while we're bingo fuel. And we're going to have to stop and burn operations points to fuel up. So I don't know how far this guy's going to get. At most, he'll move, 2 phases at 4 hexes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's probably about as far as he's going to get. That isn't going to put him in position for a strike, but well, I guess it could put him in a position for a strike if these guys decide to exit to the southeast, which isn't crazy. It's no crazier than them being where they are in the first place. But if we can get a detection, hold the track on them during this turn, pretty good chance we could go after him tomorrow. And in any case, if we do lose him, we got a pretty damn good idea where he is. He's south. He's south 18 hexes. he's here. You know? So it might be a relatively simple matter to reacquire and, you know, go for an intercept somewhere around here as he swings back and to the east. Meanwhile, Carrier Division 1 is going to come pretty much straight in. This should leave, so his movement's going to end around here. He's not going to make that whole movement in a single turn. So basically with one carrier division here and one carrier division here, they're still going to be fairly close together and hopefully able to provide some mutual support. That said, if I end up with a 2-on-2 against the Americans in December, it's December 1941, when American pilots have very little experience, and some of these fighter squadrons are probably still flying Buffaloes. Yeah, 2-on-2 is probably going to work out pretty well for me. So that's the situation in the Solomons. Let's look at the Philippines a little bit. I'm moving the mini KB out down into this area. Ambon looks weak, so I'm probably going to put a move together on Ambon. That's at least the plan for now. For the time being, priority assignments for the amphibious task forces rallying at Babel Doab is going to be finishing off this Cagayan situation. So we're going to be moving some tanks into Catawba and other units like that going forward. We nearly killed an enemy submarine here. It appears to still be here. So our DMSs are going to stay there and keep working. Still enemy ships reported here, including destroyers that I'd really like to kill. Unfortunately, I'm not too keen on hitting them again this turn because this is the better target. Much more valuable ships here, many more ships here. So that's where we're going to go. And a lot of these ships here are probably already damaged. So instead of going right back in, this former Hong Kong patrol, it's not patrolling Hong Kong anymore, but now it's going to patrol this area, basically along the path from Manila to Taytay, where if enemy ships have been coming through here and disbanding, maybe we'll catch them. Plus, having our guys right outside the front door means we can probably catch them coming out. So the battleships and destroyers that did the bombardment are going to go ahead and recombine with Carrier Division 2. I'm not too concerned that their ammunition's sort of exhausted. The battleships still have their secondary batteries available, and a lot of the function of the battleships is sort of to soak incoming shells and to screen the carriers rather than to sink surface ships. But the secondary batteries should do just fine for the light cruisers and destroyers that are in this area. Meanwhile, Carrier Division 2 is going to be moving up and taking station. Here, if we can click it again. It's going to take station just outside of Taytay, in the area where this surface task force is tooling around, so effectively a covering force. And they're going to go ahead and strike Batangas. We did notice the enemies had a long-range cap over Batangas. That's just fine. Carrier Division 2's Zeros are up to that task. These submarines that have been patrolling here since the beginning of the war, basically. So guess what? This base at Batangas, port capacity... Oh, sorry. That port capacity is 3. But this one's just 1, which means they can't stop submarines from getting in. So it looks like I did assign this one to Batangas, so that was maybe a little dumb. I think port capacity 3 is where they can stop the subs from getting in. But hey, if these guys see what's coming, then they're gonna form a task force right where the sub is, and then these guys are going to go ahead and report to this port and hopefully get a shot at a disbanded ship. Okay, I see what happened here. I meant to assign this one to Clark. Oh no, that would have been stupid too, because he'd have to go through here to get to Clark. Yeah, never mind. I'm just making dumb mistakes. It seems like there's one every turn. As for bombers, I've been moving additional bombers in here, so we now have Lilies operating out of Vigan. I believe the Lilies have been assigned to hit Clark Air Base. Yes. So they're going to be hitting Clark. We're going to have sweeps at all three of these locations, Clark, Manila, and Batangas. And then switching priorities away from this guy as far as close air support go, now that reinforcements have arrived. If he wants to go to Vigan, I mean, the battle at Vigan will take longer, but I'd rather fight him at Vigan than fight him at Clark. So that's fine by me. But these guys, just in case they aren't support units, I mentioned they're in the open, so that's the new target for the ANs. Cantabuon, yes, that's the space. Sallies are going to continue to support Vigan, or not Vigan, San Fernando. And then the naval bombers, mostly going after Manila. Sorry, I'll just verify the settings on the Bettys real quick. Yeah, they're going after Manila, and then the Nels have Batangas. So Batangas is going to be getting it from both sides. Alright, moving on to Malaya. We're going to keep attacking over here. Basically, I don't have a whole lot of respect for these guys as far as their ability to stop tanks. Now have 3 regiments in this space where we're blocking the enemy retreat from Aylor Star. Don't need all 3 there, so 2 of them are going to continue to move on towards Taiping. Meanwhile, it looks like the Aylor Star units want to come to us anyways, so that's just fine. They can come. Yeah, like even a single regiment is probably going to be enough to handle these guys, especially since these guys have been getting bombed since the beginning. It's a lot of troops showing, but that's almost all support troops. Meanwhile, the Imperial Guards Division is on the way, and I believe we have more units still landing. Yep, some artillery. So the artillery is not that big of a deal. More reinforcements will be arriving soon. These guys aren't going to be immediately relevant to the current conflict, but by the time we get to Kuala Lumpur, let's say, they could be very relevant. So these guys, it's not an amphibious task force, it's a transport task force, so they need a port to unload, and that port is going to be Bangkok. And there's actually another one behind this, so we're going to have 2 more divisions in Malaya eventually, so within the coming weeks. So yeah, so Singapore is going to be in for it. This task force is intended to be a bit of a cap trap. The enemy decided not to take the bait. You can see there is a detection, so he was spotted. So their bombers are either just set not to attack, or they're set to attack at shorter ranges. And I don't really need to inch any closer to Mersing to try to tempt these guys, at least not yet. So instead, I'm beginning the air campaign against Singapore this turn. For now, the Oscars have kind of high fatigue, high 20s, so they're going to relax, just perform a modest cap up around here. Meanwhile, the Zeros, though, they're coming in. Going to be sweeping with pretty much all of them, with a few aircraft left behind on cap, and plus we're getting more cap support from some nates. The nates that are already here are actually the night cap, but we'll have a little bit of a long-range cap coming from our bases up north with drop tanks to help sustain them. Bombing assignments, we're mostly going after these guys to help put our tanks over the top while we're waiting for these infantry regiments to catch up. China, really the main concern is Hong Kong. We're going to go ahead and make an attack this turn. Yeah, I mean that's just about it. I mean, you guys know we're going to be attacking in spaces like this. Like up here, we were noticing that resistance was a little bit higher, so those guys are still attacking, but those guys are. So it's this one where we decided to wait. So as these battles sort themselves out, we'll start sending more troops up there and clearing them out. Over here, we've got a few units on the move, including a division and a tank regiment. Going to start clearing this road out to see if we can get an estimate of strength at Sion. Might not necessarily attack it right away if we can come around the back and start to cut these guys off and make sure they can't retreat back to Sion. Yeah, so that's going to do it. We should have combat replay by tomorrow, I'd expect. Got my turn to my opponent late, so nothing more today. So we'll see you then for the replay. Thanks for watching. And we're going. December 16th, 1941, combat replay underway. Picked up a base for free. Sub escapes detection against a destroyer. These must be those destroyers that don't have depth charges. So this task force of destroyers, and I believe there's a cruiser with it, is a little bit split off from the retreating amphibious ships because there's an enemy task force approaching from the east. Just acting like a little bit of a blocker there. Yeah, there they are. Oh. Did it just say we encountered a task force? Task Force 6 encounters Task Force 114121. Well, they did night attacks before. It looks like they're doing them again. They're doing them in thunderstorms that may have interfered with the intercept by the nates and interfered with their accuracy. So as long as they're not hitting anything, I don't care. Yeah, one of our damaged ships, thanks to the shore batteries at Wake, going down. So, Mutsu does not do anything of significance firing at Rabaul. Well, and here's the task force we spotted. Looks like it's supplies rather than what we originally classified it as, was a heavy cruiser and destroyers. So we actually thought this was, you know, kind of more of the same, trying to put a quick strike on our amphibious fleet. Instead, it probably trying to reinforce Wake. Almost tempted to let him land. I mean, we'd have to bring more troops in, probably, but the outcome's going to be more American troops dead. Alright guys, you killed the transport. Get the cargo ship and the destroyer. One nice thing about these really big torpedoes that we're shooting is it really reduces the amount of time that these ships stay afloat while they're already doomed. Tend to go down nice and quick. Increasing range. How are they getting away? There we go. Alright, main battery hit, water lines the destroyer minesweeper. That ship's probably critically damaged now too. Oh yeah, he's gone. Ah, come on, just put a torpedo into him and walk away. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Loaded with troops. Nice to see that happen to him for a change. Alright, sorry about any skip in the video there. Had to go get myself a cup of coffee. Doing this bright-eyed and bushy-tailed first thing in the morning. Looks like we still hold contact on their carriers. Alright, sweep on Singapore. We're gonna be outnumbered, but in terms of quality, it's nowhere close. Biggest downside to using zeros for this, especially at the range that they're flying, is just that pretty much any aircraft that we lose, we're very likely to lose a pilot with it. And IJN Navy pilots are really just too valuable to lose in large numbers. I can replace Army pilots fairly easily. Got, you know, all those squadrons hanging out in Korea, up against the Soviet border. They don't have anything to do but train pilots. So, yeah, I can replace the Army pilots much more easily. So this is probably going better than I could have hoped. I'm not even seeing a whole lot of damage to the Zeros. Definitely none shot down yet. Meanwhile, we've shot down 8 Buffaloes. And they're only starting to outnumber us now. Now, I guess as the enemy fighters begin to congregate and their numbers come up, which never happened. Huh. Yeah, it looked like both sides still had plenty of fighters. I'm not sure why combat ended then. I was going to say, once the numbers start to skew grossly on their side, because it was 53 to 12 overall, that the kill ratio was going to change quite a bit. But no, it ended up being 9 to 0. Yeah, I'm used to this number being maybe you multiply it by 2 or less. This time it was off by a factor of 3. Alright, more sweeps. Clark Air Base says they're not dead yet. These are much, much better fighters than the Buffaloes that we were just against in Singapore. See that these are the P-40E models. These are the fighter-bomber capable variants, which makes them more valuable from my point of view, because they're an anti-surface threat. Yeah, they haven't shot down any of us yet, but they've damaged at least 2 of our planes. Oh, there's a kill. Definitely a more formidable adversary than the Buffalo. I'd actually go so far as to say that until the Hurricane starts showing up, the P-40E is the best fighter the Allies have to match up against the Zero. So that was 3 to 1. Not that great. But kind of acceptable considering that the numbers weren't horribly skewed. Alright, more Zeros in Singapore. The one characteristic that the Buffalo has where it's better than the Zero is that it's more durable and it has armor. So we are seeing that the Buffalo's sometimes able to resist these hits from the Zeros, disengage successfully, and probably land safely. Badly outnumbered. It's only getting worse. Actually, wouldn't mind if our last 2 planes just disengaged right now. And one of them gets shot full of holes. It's okay to leave. No one's gonna call you a coward, dude. Overall here in Singapore, it's now 13 to 0, not including any of our planes that might have crashed on the way home, thanks to the damage. There will be some of those. Ah, come on, you got him from behind, don't let him thatch weave you. Whew. a slaughter. I'm almost scared to hand this off to the Oscars with how well the Zeros are doing. So what do you think? Should I start heading down to Mersing? Oh, they got one. Look at that. 1-0 destroyed compared to 18 buffaloes shot down so far. Yeah, with all the buffaloes have a terrible service rating, so it's not just how many we're shooting down, it's how many that are going to be out of action for like a week because they're shot full of holes. These guys will not repair quickly. Sweeps at Manila. We're actually going to be outnumbered for this. Once again, they're not dead. They were just flying elsewhere. I did get the sense that we seemed to pull into the lead in the air campaign in Luzon a little too quickly. Oh, that was actually a P-39. Did we get one of each? No, just a P-39. The presence of P-39s in the Philippines actually implies that there's some reinforcement going on there. I might have expected that he just considered however many airplanes started there to be acceptable losses and save the rest of his aircraft pool to fight somewhere else another day. But I'd say it looks like he increased their numbers by probably 25. I think that's the size of an Army fighter squadron. Didn't sweep well enough, apparently. Well, looks like we got away with it. Our bombers could have been intercepted, but were not. We do get a P-39 on the ground for our trouble, along with some light damage to the airbase. Oh no. Killing our Zeros. Oh, so we're actually even in air-to-air kills over Luzon today now. At least it's just 2 fighters. Yeah, so we lose 2. Hopefully we don't get attacked again on the way out. Make it 3. 3 Sally's shot down because we can't get reliable escorts and can't sweep well enough so that we don't need them. And I might even suspend bombing for a turn while I try to get this under control. Just something to think about. So we switch targets with the ANs. They're now bombing the enemy units in the open, which includes the 31st Infantry Regiment. Yeah, 1st Constabulary Regiment. So it was a little weird to see so many troops reported without any guns. That really makes it look like a support unit in my mind. But they are infantry, so good thing we did the airstrike. Putting a little bit of pain on these guys that may be trying to attack my city there. I guess it's no, it's not Wuchang. And I think Nanchang's this one, so I forget which one this is. But we're not completely leaving it to the terrain. Bombing more troops in the open. Beating these guys up pretty good to help our tanks overrun them. Still waiting for the infantry to catch up with the tanks there. Yeah, we just love seeing these little TB3 raids that do nothing. Yeah, it actually destroyed one. Way to go, little guys. Not easy to shoot down a medium bomber with 30 cals. Kind of tempted to move the baby KB over there if he's going to be sending airstrikes. This could be a problem. Speaking of trying to shoot down bombers with 30 cals, if you thought shooting down a medium bomber was hard, an obsolete, rickety, crappy little medium bomber, try taking on this beast. Yeah, good luck, guys. Well, if that's going to be their priority bomber target, and we're not seeing B-17s really appear anywhere else out here on the Southeast Asian theater, maybe time to move the Tojos over to there. Heck, these might be the B-17s that originally started in the Philippines. So yeah, that's definitely on my list to consider. Of course, there's these guys too. Yeah, I'm not sure where B-17s are likely to do more damage. This is an oil-producing and/or refining hex. So in addition to the amphibious traffic that's present now, especially once Luzon's taken care of, there's going to be oil traffic moving out of here too, or more likely fuel traffic. And then Bangkok's going to be a bit of a troop hub over the short term. Okay, so I guess that's the answer. In the short term, Bangkok is the more sensitive target. Yeah. More B-17s, this time flying out of the Philippines. We lost the line. I guess that would have been Clark. It should be Clark. They're flying at extended range. That's a hint. Yeah, that's definitely Clark. Oh my god. They're backing themselves in a corner? So, the Devastators are flying, but they're carrying bombs instead of torpedoes. If the Devastators were carrying bombs, we'd lose the battleship. Or, if they were carrying torpedoes, we'd be losing the battleships right now. Of course, these battleships are still taking quite a pounding from these 500 to 1,000 pound bombs. Yeah, heavy fires on this battleship, but not heavy damage. What is he thinking? So I guess he's still got 2 escape routes. One of them's going to take him right towards where my new air HQ was positioned, and where I'm going to be moving Betty's and Nels into. That's not going to be pleasant for him. Is he going to be being chased by my carriers the whole way through if he goes north? So south seems like it's still the smarter choice, even though he's got to go around that whole Port Moresby and Milne Peninsula like a hook. Yeah, I don't know what he's thinking here. So I haven't seen any squadron indicators during these attacks. Maybe I just haven't been looking closely enough. Didn't see any that time. Because there's still this other task force over here, so it makes me wonder, did he split the Lexington and Enterprise up? Or is this somebody else? Maybe that's there as a warning. Somebody there that's going to spot my carrier scout planes to alert him to my presence before they engage his main fleet. Speaking of which, yeah, that's probably Carrier Division 1 that is attempting to send airstrikes out. Yeah, Carrier Division 1, the Akagi, tried to send Vals and Kates, but unable to locate target due to weather. Wildcats doing what they can. VB6. That's the Enterprise. At least the Enterprise. Well, Mutsu's up to heavy damage. They're being tenacious. He may want to stick around. Maybe it's because he's got that little, tattletale out there that he's willing to stick around. It's as long as he doesn't see any evidence that my carriers are coming, he presses the attack. He detects the carriers, he runs. Maybe something like that. Damn it. Well, looks like this was a game of cat and also cat instead of a game of cat and mouse. These destroyer minesweepers were supposed to be hunting this Dutch sub. That did not work out. Oh, come on. Oh, and we're actually taking damage from this guy. Not much, though. Yeah, assault odds aren't good over here in Taiping, but, you know, the enemy apparently doesn't have anti-tank weapons, so the enemy's getting tired, and they are taking casualties. Alright, forced a unit to retreat up here. Not an especially powerful one. We only take one squad destroyed compared to, like, over 120 for them. Alright. One of the questions here at Hong Kong is, have they recovered their fortification levels at all? Well, not enough. Forts are down to 0. Base odds are way in my favor. Adjusted odds close to 1-to-1. I think I got the... Oh, Japanese casualties were pretty bad. So we're definitely going to need to rest for a turn here to recover a little bit. Yeah, we want to make sure we haven't dipped too far below, about like 600 AVL, say. And as long as we're still up around there and not suffering from a lot of fatigue, we can press on. In the meantime, we need to bomb their airfield to stop them from recovering that fortification level, but looks like we're getting close. Alright, tanks versus Provisional Infantry Corps. Allied units retreating with massive casualties. Alright, we've got some enemy troops to surrender, so that is an enemy unit wiped out, and a rail line cleared. We now have direct rail line access to Kaifeng over at the front lines over here. So much fighting. Oof. No squads destroyed for us. It's like... Man, like 140 squads destroyed of theirs. Now let's see if that trend continues here. San Fernando captured. We've broken through the front line here. Small price to pay, 5 squads. 57 combat squads destroyed for them, along with 60 guns, 70 vehicles. Ouch. That had to hurt. That had to hurt. Yeah. 194th Tank Battalion taking serious casualties out here. And the best part about this is all this AV that he poured into this base to defend isn't going to be able to defend in Clark, where that defensive bonus was going to help them out a lot more. Alright, so now the base behind enemy lines a bit. This was more even. So it's saying that we took more casualties, but then you look at the squads, and, okay, so we had 37 destroyed, or 37 disabled, 2 destroyed. He had 65 disabled and 5 destroyed. And, you know, the numbers below that are pretty minor. So how did they get more casualties calculated for us than for him? This looks like we did pretty good. I mean, especially in terms of squads disabled. If we've disabled nearly twice as many of his as he has of ours, we're going to be in a better position going forward. We are benefiting from poor prep and experience from the enemy here. I expect I will be making this space my priority bombing target, at least for lighter bombers. We're going to want to keep the pressure on the major bases too. But as far as like close air support goes, this is where the ground attacks are going to be. Alright, taking Kavieng. As we rest on Wake Island. Yep, looks like we've got enough to take Wake. Just check the disruption levels next turn. Rabaul's not looking so good thanks to how many ships we lost, how many troops we lost with those ships. Yeah, so our AV fell from like 650 to 550. We need to get that back over 600. Still need to get more troops to Catawba. Alright, quick post-turn analysis. Aircraft losses for us. The Zeros were busy. Lost 10 of them. 8 air-to-air, and I can tell you 3 of those, make that 4 of those were over Luzon. And unfortunately, we only got 4 enemy fighters over Luzon at the same time, so that was even. Of course, we had an absolute slaughter over Singapore. Before that, what else did we lose here? So, we lost a lot of Petes. A lot of... Okay, I know what that was. One of the ships that was bombed around Rabaul and sank was a seaplane tender. So that's how we ended up losing 10 Petes. So 5 that were aboard the ship when it went down, and possibly 5 that were in the air, and then didn't have anywhere to be recovered by. Little disappointing that we hadn't taken Kavieng yet. If we had taken Kavieng first, then these 5 would have been saved. Took some losses of Sallies over Luzon that were flying without escorts. I had been relying on sweeps this turn. There were a few, not Zeros, Oscars assigned to escort duty. Apparently not enough or at the right altitude. That's fine. We really need to break the enemy air bases. But overall losses 40 to 27. So here's the enemy losses. 33 Buffaloes, including 5 ops losses. That's substantial. I think the number of Buffaloes that Singapore had was something like 70. So they just lost nearly half of them. Then, you know, P-40s, did they lose any P-40Bs? No, just P-40Es. So they're down 5 P-40s and 8 P-39s, which seems high. I don't know, maybe I can't count. I didn't think we shot down 5 P-40s. Well, maybe we're seeing the numbers get bumped up by damaged planes crashing at their base. Overall, very happy with the results over Malaya. The Luzon air campaign clearly still needs a little bit of work from us. So be looking to hit the airfields, maybe concentrate on the airfields a little bit more than the port strikes that we keep ordering, but they, don't fly. More disappointment there. I'll get to that in a minute. Looking over at the Malayan theater, we're seeing enemy ships sortied. So this, I think, may be the first time we've detected enemy ships in the open like this. And of course we're not attacking them. And the reason why is because I've limited the range of my Bettys and Nels that are flying out of here, because we didn't want them getting shot down over Singapore. So these guys were held off to a range of 8, which wasn't enough to get here. So it might be that the enemy actually took that into consideration. He saw that I had that unintended airstrike on Singapore, and my reaction to that was probably, he probably predicted my reaction was going to be to reduce the range. And then if these guys were part of who was sheltering over at Taytay, or maybe over here at Batangas, this was their opportunity to get out, and it worked. So if that's what's going on, that was a really good move, and I got outplayed a little bit. So yeah, good on you, anonymous allied player. Let's see what's going on here. Otherwise, don't have any active surveillance on these. I'm gonna have to adjust my recon sweeps to make sure they're targeting these guys specifically. Enemy submarine activity is always a little bit troubling in areas I'm operating carriers. These are still juicy targets. I still want to hit them. I don't know why Carrier Division 2 didn't hit them. Carrier Division 2 doesn't even have a detection level right now. They don't know we're here. Fortunately, my battleships in this task force have already shot their load. So probably not going to be using them for any bombardments. Alright, taking a look south. So this is very concerning. Dutch submarines sortying up through the Seram Sea, and they are in close proximity to my carriers. So these guys definitely need to pull back a little bit. Oh, look at that. No detection level. We might be getting away with it. Alright, so I was hoping or thinking that I could maybe shoot down some aircraft by drawing an airstrike over here. Maybe that's exactly what I do. We'll cap-trap the enemy bombers over here while getting away from the submarines. And, maybe detaching a few destroyers to patrol this area to get these. Are we getting any information that these guys are headed north? No. Nothing like that. Still ships in port. I think these are just mostly patrol craft. Nothing too critical going on here. Let's take a look at Hong Kong real quick. Low disruption, fatigue, I would say in the 20s is pretty moderate, so yeah, wait a day and then see what happens. Any significant enemy movement. So we've got this enemy unit in contact with us. I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to check that airstrike that we had on that unit and see if we've identified them, since our recon aircraft aren't telling us the unit strength of this guy. I'd like to see if I can find that strength today based on the name of the unit in the combat reports, as opposed to needing to do a bombardment attack or a recon flight to determine his strength. Enemy blocking force on this rail line. That's going to have to be addressed. We did not eject these guys from the space, even though there was a battle here, so that's fine. especially with these guys having finished up and 2 enemy units, actually all 3, being located along roads. These guys are armor, so they're going to move on roads very quickly. Excuse me. Can probably finish those guys up pretty well. We've also got a blocking force on this rail line. More on the roads here. You can see we're approaching these guys from both sides. So they're going to be dealt with pretty quickly. The force that was blocking this rail stayed on the rail in their direction of retreat, but we see we've already got an enemy unit advancing there. So yeah, China's fluid right now, but pretty under control. I don't really see any threats to any of our bases anywhere, this being a possible exception, but I don't really think so. I am noticing that there are enemy units retreating to Chusin. It's probably a unit we defeated in a prior turn. And you can see we're kind of approaching Chusin from 2 sides now. So we'll see if they have enough to defend it. Let's see if we can find Wake. Alright. So we turned the tables on the enemy a little bit. This time it was us putting a small cruiser-destroyer task force up against a troop convoy. Pretty happy about that result. Little concerned that there's 3 submarines trying to defend this base. Especially when your destroyers do not have anti-submarine capability. I think it's time for these guys to GTFO. The numbers shown in the combat actions looked really bad for the enemy. Yeah, so we're back above 140 AV. Fatigue and disruption are still very high, especially for the second SNLF. That 46 disruption figure basically means they're combat ineffective. I could consider resting the second SNLF while letting the 144th Regiment attack. Base force, I'd rather just not attack with them at all. Or I could just wait another turn. Something to consider during the setup. Of course, what we really want to know. So we tried to put an airstrike out on this guy without having a solid classification of who it is, and the planes took off. I won't say they didn't fly, but they weren't able to find their target. Carrier Division 1's been detected, so they know we're coming. So that probably means our yeah, with numbers like that, that's 2 carriers, not 1. So, Lexington Enterprise Battle Group, still here, kind of backed into a corner. Carrier Division 3 has not been detected. Now that's an interesting piece of information, isn't it? Not detected, and they're pretty good on their fuel state. Not that great, I guess. Better than they were. Carrier Division 1 has been detected, and we've basically run their destroyers out of fuel by moving at full speed. Meanwhile, we have a surface force that's undetected. Heck, I might just consolidate them with Carrier Division 1. And they don't know about these guys yet. Oh, where are these guys headed? Yeah, these guys gotta get out of here. These guys have been detected. So, the enemy carriers are going to react to Carrier Division 1. Since he's coming straight in it would seem to me that the logical way for him to bug out would be to the south. Going north and west is risky. Speaking of risky, let's consider truck for a moment. These Bettys have a torpedo carrying range of 17. They're at 20. If they go to Wewak, they're at 21. Alright. So, they can hug this coast without being vulnerable to Bettys and Nels from truck. They cannot get out without being vulnerable to trucks and Nels from Bettys and Nels from Babel Doab. They'll be in range right about here at Sarmi. So that's a potential danger that they're going to have to face if they want to go that way. There's also Carrier Division 2 that they're going to have to worry about, who, if they try to exit this way, Carrier Division 2 can just come down here and block them. And then on top of that, they've got the baby KB. So going northwest looks like a really bad option for these guys. Trying to escape to the northeast, since he hasn't detected these guys yet, he doesn't know where they are, and expecting them to be north is quite reasonable. So I don't think northeast looks good for these guys either. I think through the Solomon Sea is his only real option. So these guys that have been detected, I can let them come straight in. Maybe he'll even be tempted by the fact that it looks like it's going to be a fair fight. 2 carriers on 2 carriers. Let him think it. Meanwhile, these guys come in to the south in anticipation that that's where they're going to go. I'd love to run these guys at high speed again. But then they're basically going to be empty. Yeah, I can really only run these guys at flank speed for 1 turn, and he's already used his. See, figure 18 hexes of movement if they try to bug out at high speed. So this is 13 for them, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So he can make it all the way to the Coral Sea. I want to try to be like 6 spaces away from this. So that looks like a really good hex for me to get into. So that would be 15 hexes from where I am now. Without flank speed movement, I can move 8 hexes in a turn. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can get there. Yeah, I'm not gonna go for this with my hair on fire. Especially since he doesn't seem to be in any hurry to get out. I think having detected Carrier Division 1, the smart play is to get out, but honestly the smart play was to get out 3 turns ago, and he's still here. It'd be really funny if I managed to get these submarines into position on him again. That might be a little too much to hope for. If he's moving 8 hexes in 1 turn, not in 1 turn, but 1 phase. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, so he can get there in 1 move if he's at flank speed. Well, my submarines, I mean, I'm probably not going to flank speed them. I guess I could. We're only going to get there. Yeah, maybe it's worth it. Maybe I go ahead and put him at flank speed, and I get 1 here and 1 here. At basically the same time he's moving through. Could be fun. What else are they going to do? They don't hold any other contacts, right? But anyways, with the fuel situation on my carriers, I can't extend them too much. I've got a replenishment group coming in, but it's way up here. Unfortunately, deployment to this theater has been delayed just because of a lack of availability of destroyers to escort them. You know, obviously I'm up to 3 now. For a while it was just 1. I think I have an AO in port here too. Yeah, I do have 1. So it might be possible to, for the 1 to give Carrier Division 1 a bit of a gas and go. Nah, I wouldn't even bother with that because it's just 1, and like this is a huge fleet of them. So if I'm gonna rendezvous with the slowpoke, I might as well rendezvous with the fast guys. No, I think that's gonna do it. Well, I keep saying that's going to do it, and then I think of something else I want to talk about. Let's check in on Pearl real quick. So when we detected this enemy task force, I basically lined up a whole bunch of submarines on that track to Pearl. May have turned out to be a little bit of a be careful what you wish for situation, because our submarine attacked, missed, and then took some depth charge damage in return for this trouble. Yeah, so maybe this is a tough target. It's got at least 1 destroyer. It's at least 1 destroyer and a tanker, right? Not holding any other contacts at Pearl. The submarine that was close has cleared. And whichever submarine that is, it's lost its detection level, so that's good news for us. And yeah, we continue to be undetected. Even this guy that's gotten really close is undetected. Now, is that because they're not doing that many ASW patrols, or is that because of the heavy rain in the Hex? Light rain protecting this guy. I mean, these guys are close enough that if they had even, like, float plane patrols, should be able to get 3 hexes, I would think. I think a Kingfisher has at least 6 hexes for its maximum range, right? Wouldn't be a very good scout plane if it couldn't go at least 6 hexes, right? And the Catalinas are certainly better than this. I think their ASW range is probably something like 8. The original position of these submarines is based on the Catalina's ASW range. So yeah, I mean, if we're going to get 3 hexes away and not get detected, we can tighten this net up significantly. So it's something I'll be working on in the next couple turns. This net's going to keep getting tighter. We've got subs over here off the west coast. These guys have yet to detect anybody. And they themselves have yet to be detected. So not sure what's going on there. I would expect that there would be plenty of traffic coming out of San Francisco and Los Angeles. Maybe something I need to do is find what are the actual routes between Pearl Harbor and San Francisco, and identify, like, specifically which of these hex rows are they actually going to be traveling in, and then positioning the subs in there, because I expect that things like troop convoys and supply runs, things like that, he's going to dogleg those. So they're not going to be along the route that the computer automatically assigns for them. On the other hand, if it's, say, a really badly damaged battleship that got shot up to hell during the Pearl Harbor attacks, that ship is probably going to go on a direct path, lest the extra distance and time at sea cause it to take on additional water and not survive the trip at all. Maybe a good idea to have these subs on that specific route. And with that closing thought, I'm going to go ahead and end the analysis here. We'll see you again for the setup for the December 17th turn. I ended up talking a lot about the setup, I guess. You know, that is the way most players on YouTube do it. They do the replay, and then they go right into the setup for the next turn. And it looks like I nearly fell into that. So yeah, we'll see you for the setup.